Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this, our 7th episode of SSH Writers on Writing, where we interview scholars, researchers, and writers across the disciplines about their writing lives, exploring things like, do they have a specific process to their work? How is their writing different from that in other disciplines? What do they expect from their students? And why did they choose to be an academic instead of a dentist? My name is Lori Enns, and I'm the SSH Writing Center Coordinator at Nazarbayev University. And with me today is an Associate Professor in the Graduate School of Public Policy, Peter Howie. Dr. Howie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lori.
We're very happy to have you. Can we just begin by introducing our listeners to your expertise? So I understand that you study the energy sectors in Kazakhstan and in other countries, other parts of the world. Is it through the lens of economics, or can you just tell us a little bit more about what you study?
So at the moment, I study 3 areas. I study energy. Most of my energy studies are actually focused on Kazakhstan. The other 2 areas I study is climate change, and specifically with respect to emissions trading systems. And there I compare Kazakhstan to other countries, and one of the papers that I published compared Kazakhstan to South Korea. Because in general, in my field, it's much better to do comparison analyses rather than single case studies. The third area that I look at is inequality and resource dependency. And here I use Kazakhstan, but I've also used other countries, some African countries, and also Australia as comparisons.
Yeah. So you were talking about in your field, and I want to talk about this a little bit because when I was looking at the different things that you study, it seems to me that a lot of what you do can cross over into different disciplines. So I know that you taught you taught in SSH for economics a couple of years back, but it seems like your research straddles political science, sociology, economics. Do you self-identify in any particular field?
No, that's the issue with public policy. It's multidisciplinary. So as a result, what we try to do is, I would say I'm an empirical economist first, but I dabble in sociology. I don't go into the political science perspective too much, other than probably the stakeholder analyses and things like that. But in general, I would say I'm an empirical economist, an applied empirical economist.
Okay. All right. So now, did anything in particular make you pursue this path? So let's say after you did your undergrad and then you started your graduate work, did anything in particular tell you that you wanted to be an empirical did you say empirical economist?
Yes. Well, I used to work as a geologist in developing countries. And I noticed, first of all, that in many developing countries, they may be very rich in their mineral deposits, but they're extremely poor with respect to society. And I lived in one of the countries, in the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And it's considered one of the richest countries in mineral deposits in the Western Hemisphere. And the country is Suriname in South America.
Did you begin writing there? Was that your research fieldwork, or did you also begin writing when you were there?
No, before I became an applied economist, I had graduated with a bachelor's degree in geology. Mm-hmm. And so I was an assistant country manager in Suriname. And for a small junior mining company in Canada. And I had to do lots of writing, lots of weekly reports, monthly reports, quarterly reports, annual reports, because we had to raise money. And the way we raised money is by providing information. And very few people wanted to travel to Suriname to get the information. So what we had to do is we had to present our information either graphically or in words, and that's what we used to do. And so We used to write press releases for the stock exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange, press releases for the New York Stock Exchange, because our firm was actually listed on both. So I can tell you that writing was a daily, experience. First of all, because you had to write down, you got to keep a journal of what was going on, because I had like 80 people working with me. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can remember things is to actually write things down. And I just used to rely on these notes to make weeklies, my weekly notes to make monthlies, monthly notes to make quarterlies, and quarterly notes to make annual. So everything is like Lego. It goes down to the simplest block, and the simplest block is just keeping a good journal every day.
Yeah. So I think this might be of interest to our students. A lot of them won't end up in academia, right? A lot of them will end up in companies, and they'll have to be doing reporting. So you have published a number of articles in different journals, and as I was looking at them, I think that they seem to me that most of them that they would follow the IMRAD structure, but a number of them don't. So even post industry, like now that you're working through academia, what kinds of things do you write that aren't the IMRAD, for example?
Well, I have written sort of what we call policy papers or policy memos. And these are sort of like, these are pieces of work, especially the policy memo, that the audience has to get your message within 2 to 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. So you have to write a certain way to hook them within 15 seconds, and they have 3 to 5 minutes to read it after that if they're hooked. And that's one. The policy paper is more like industry. It's much more industry specific. But the key thing is that there are ways. The structure is different, because you put your recommendations first.
And the audience of those papers are stakeholders or potential investors?
Yeah, no. For public policy, most of these are stakeholders, government. People, other stakeholders, like I wrote one for instance, in Canada, it was on guaranteed annual income, and it was for people in the public service in Ottawa. That was the intended audience. So, and you can't write in an academic way that way. You got to get rid of all the jargon. There's no academic jargon in it. You got to write as if you're writing either to your grandfather or grandmother.
So can we move on to your students then? So yes. So you're not only a researcher, you also teach in the Graduate School of Public Policy. So what kinds of writing do you assign to your students?
Well, first of all, I'll break it into the master's classes, master's students and PhD students. So my master's students, in general, I have both numeric and non-numeric classes, and believe me, that microeconomics is halfway between. I actually believe in what you call writing through the curriculum. I was trained in the United States in the concept of writing through the curriculum, so I believe that all classes should have a writing component. Mm-hmm. Right? So in microeconomics, what I do is I get, like this semester, what I'm having my students do is they have, every 3 weeks, they actually have to write what I call an economic policy memo. It's a 3-page memo analyzing a specific situation, an event, and they have to put the background of the event. They have to provide an analysis of the event and a conclusion and potentially recommendation of the event.
All right. So your students are writing these policy memos. Now, let's talk about what you don't want to see in their answers. Is there anything in particular that you find annoying in student papers?
Yeah, there are many things. First of all, I find that students don't look at how the papers are going to be graded. I use rubrics. I'm a rubric freak. And I use rubrics almost on all writing assignments because it forces me to focus on what I'm expecting before the paper's dispensed. And a lot of students don't read the rubric, and as a consequence, they write not according to the way that it's going the paper or memo is going to be graded. So that's one thing. The second component I really hate is the students here don't understand the use of white space. They just want to put words and words and words. They think that everything should be an English essay and a comparative English essay, and they don't understand the idea of reinforcement and of key ideas by using point forms or numbers, that's what I mean by white space. White space is just as important as the words on a paper, and I find cluttering pages with words really is very distracting when it comes to reading recommendations, because your eyes are not drawn to the most important things. You have to search for the most important things rather than the student is not helping the reader. And so the student really needs to help the audience read effectively.
So can we just discuss a little bit more about what white space means then? Is it that the sections are more obvious, that there's more space in between sections?
Yeah, you have little section and subsections, you have subsection titles. If you want to reinforce concepts, you actually use point form, you use bold, you have, if you indent the margins, if you want to use a quote that you think is important. So what you're doing is you're really trying to help the reader understand the key information in the first pass, because you always have to read something twice. So you want to look at the key information on the first pass, then you reread it. For the PhD, I actually get them to do sort of the fundamental research paper. For instance, in microeconomics PhD this term, I'm getting them to write a very good literature review on a policy issue and 2 or 3 policy options to deal with that policy issue. And because a lot of times jurisdictions use more than one system to try to deal with a problem. So, and there's lots of research to that. So that's what I'm getting them to do in general, is to get them to do a very, very good literature review.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like great training in order to be an academic, right? Like literature reviews seem to pop up everywhere in all of the disciplines, just as a good synthesis to what the ideas that came beforehand.
Yes.
Sounds really good. Let's move on to more personal questions, if you don't mind.
Okay. No problem.
Are you ready? Okay.
Yeah.
You are Canadian. Yay.
I'm a Quebecois.
You're a Quebecois. Oh my goodness. So you know a little bit about...
Actually, I'm not a Quebecois, because Quebecois come from Quebec City. I'm a Bluet.
Okay. Good to differentiate. So, and you've been here probably longer than we have. Is there something that you miss about Canada, living here?
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup. Agreed.
You could buy it, but it's outrageously expensive.
Yeah, it is. Pancakes with maple syrup.
Yes.
Okay. And what about professions? So let's say that you did not become an academic and work in the School of Public Policy. Is there a profession that you would have liked to do had it not been in academia?
Well, the problem is I like thinking and I like being around smart people. So if it could be anything if I'm around smart people. I would have loved to be Bruce Chatwin. Number 2, like a travel writer.
Okay. Travel writing. Yeah.
Yes.
That is an underrated profession, I think. Well, underrated. I love reading travel writing. So in another time or place or world, you would have been a travel writer. What about things that you would definitely not have liked to do? And so we've got a doctor, things that you definitely hate to do.
Dentist.
Dentist.
What else don't I like to do? I'm just trying to think here. I don't think I would have liked to be like a factory worker in the old factories, like in the Ford Motor Company, putting in screws 12 hours a day, 4 days a week. No,
Boring.
I would have jumped over a cliff.
Okay, so not a factory worker from 100 years ago. Okay, we got that. So I assume that you listen to music?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite band or favorite group or something that you like to listen to?
I listen to jazz, so my favorite is Miles Davis.
Oh, Miles Davis. Okay, how about any of the Canadians?
Oscar
Diana.
Peterson.
Okay.
I like someone from Calgary, a person called Feist.
All right. Is it Feist PH or Feist with an F?
F.
Okay. Let's say that you could lead the life of leisure. You didn't, you were independently wealthy. Okay. How would you spend your time?
Setting up libraries in third world countries. Major problems in a lot of the third world countries that I've lived is there's no neighborhood library. A neighborhood library is a center of a neighborhood. It's really a vibrant center of a neighborhood. It's not just where you collect books and you read books. There's a lot more to a neighborhood library, and I think this is something that's really, really missing in developing world society.
So this is one of the things that I've missed here in Kazakhstan, because so you're talking about neighborhood libraries as opposed to libraries in schools or in universities.
Yeah, exactly. It's got completely different concepts. You get pensioners to come in and do reading sessions for kids. You get pensioners involved in the communities. You get kids interacting with pensioners other than their grandparents, and there's things like this going on all the time. And then you're bringing in the concept of reading and the love of reading.
Yeah. I used to take my kids to like basic science classes at the library. So they would be based on kids' books. So the people who were doing it would say, okay, now let's make this goo into something that's meaningful. Yeah. So that was kind of fun to do at the neighborhood library. Okay. So I'm conscious of the fact that you have other things to do with your day. And so before I let you go, I just wanted to say thank you very much for meeting with me and answering all of our weird questions and giving your time and your thoughtful answers and giving us a glimpse into the life of a researcher in public policy. So Dr. Peter Howie, thank you very much for being on the show.
Great. Thank you very much, Laura. Bye-bye.